going to go ahead and record it. And before we begin, this is really just to give you some ideas if you are presenting to others or your students, but it's also a reminder to us, some Zoom expectations. The most important today is for us to learn to have fun and just have our mics off, and please participate. We want participation. This is going to be a two-way communication today. So I am Lizette Roman, and I am a 6th grade bilingual educator. I've been teaching for 16 years, and I am also the co-chair for the Long Island region of New York State, TESOL. And today, joining me is Celine. Celine, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Celine Yoel. I'm primarily a pediatric bilingual SLP on Long Island. Prior to becoming an SLP, I was an ELL teacher. So this was always kind of my dream to have our field come together and work together. And I'm very nerdy about this topic, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, we're both total nerds about this, which we're really excited about to share all this stuff. I also have founded Educating with Love, and Educating with Love is just basically, I want to be a valuable resource to all of you, build community, a space where you can feel safe on asking questions, even if they seem silly. We just want to be a great, valuable resource during these hard times. And soon we'll be offering membership and doing more webinars and having more guests. So I look forward to having you all with me. So before we continue, I wanted to do a little bit of self-awareness and self-management. How have you been all feeling during this time? So this is a quick little chart that you can offer to your students, or anyone you're working with. I feel. How is it that you feel? Overwhelmed, hopeful, defeated, excited? Think about why. Like, sometimes it's important for us to self-reflect. You can share, or you maybe don't want to share, and what you'll try to do to help yourself. So these are some executive functioning tools that we can offer to our students, right? I'll share. Yesterday I felt completely overwhelmed, but today I felt very, very hopeful for many reasons. I've had a great support from my administrative team, and so very hopeful to see how much I grow as a professional this year. So that's really, really exciting.
I feel good today too, Lizette. Yesterday was kind of a crazy day for a variety of reasons, but today was a good day. You know, sometimes that 5 minutes of self-care is really all it takes. And yes.
And I just want to go over like a little model that my grandmother taught me, so maybe some of you think, patra ni pa coger impulso. So that basically, in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, I said it in Spanish. It basically just means you're not going to look back, not even to gain any momentum. You're not going to take a step back even to gain momentum. You're just going to move forward. And so that's why we are all here today, for us to move forward. So give ourselves a pat on the back for being here tonight. And while we present, I would love to ask all of you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil. And we're going to do the 3-2-1 strategy that I use with my students in the classroom. I would love for you to please write down 3 facts that you've learned. Be prepared, because we're going to go into breakout rooms and share with our colleagues. 3 facts that you've learned, 2 interesting details, 1 question that you want to ask for clarification. So myth number 1. Myth number 1. Celine, I'm going to ask you, because this crosses our mind all the time. One of the greatest myths I hear is that children should not learn 2 languages simultaneously because they will become confused, especially children who have a learning disability. So can you please clarify this for us?
Sure. So I'm really glad that you asked this question, because it is the #1 question I get from parents when I'm doing an evaluation. And I always tell them every child has the ability to become bilingual, even those with a speech language or learning impairment. Okay, so basically, with all the literature shows that being bilingual actually has cognitive benefits, and we'll get a little bit more deep into that later, in the presentation. but the child will learn at approximately the same rate that they would learn one language, they will learn the second language. So a lot of parents are hesitant and they say, oh, well, I'll try and just speak to my child in English because that's their language of instruction. And it's actually the largest myth that I hear, that they feel like their child's going to be confused. And part of the reason is because sometimes it takes a little bit longer for a child to express themselves when they're acquiring two languages. So the child might not be verbalizing as much, but they're understanding both languages. And that's part of the natural trajectory of language development. Children develop their receptive language before they develop their expressive language. So you might not hear as many words in some children, but they're able to, for example, follow directions in two languages.
I see. Yeah, this was a big question for myself because there are so many children that have come across my way, and if we wonder, like, are they confused, what's going on? And so this really became clear to me when you talked to me about first receptive language. They're just going to be doing a lot of listening and reading and just having all that input, and then they'll be able to produce for us. So my students right now, who are emerging and transitioning students, most of them, I see a lot of this happening with them. So I'm really glad you've clarified that with us. And I thought we could dig a little deeper into receptive language for people to really understand what is receptive language during that stage when they're not producing as much.
Sure. So, from the ENL perspective, like, people talk about the silent period where a child might be understanding things, but they're not talking as much. So one thing I always like to explain to parents is that there's actually two parts to language: comprehension and expression. And comprehension is a lot of things. It's the ability to follow directions, understand questions, vocabulary, grammar. It's all those parts that go together that help a child be able to understand. So, for a school-based SLP or ENL teacher or classroom teacher, a lot of times teachers present things auditorily. So, a child might have difficulty following directions without additional cues, without visual cues, or, all those wonderful strategies that we use to help aid in comprehension. So, like, asking WH questions, that's a big one. You find that a lot with school-age children. Like, can they answer a variety of questions? Are they able to understand grammatical structures, which is a big part of second language learning, the grammar. The vocabulary also. I mean, there's a lot of considerations for vocabulary exposure, cultural linguistic background. There's so many pieces moving there for that help with a child's comprehension. So the most important thing is looking at the whole language environment that the child is coming from to understand where they should be.
That's great. And when I look at this, I try to put myself in the child's shoe, and I see how there's so much for them to take in and so much for them to learn at once, right? I mean, there's so many components to it. And as an educator, I really go back to this idea of comprehensible input. What is going to help our students really do well with that receptive language? So I keep going over this over and over again during my webinars. Comprehensible input is so crucial for us to repeat, to speak slowly, enunciate words, do some clarification in their native language, providing realia and visuals, providing wait time. So please, I'm going to give everyone a copy of this. As we're preparing our lessons, I know that things are insane right now, but the more we can provide some of this comprehensible input, the better for our students. Even though we have so much going on with our hybrid students, our remote learners, we can't let go of this.
So Lizette, just to piggyback off the previous information, the strategies that you shared, a lot of those strategies are strategies that I would use as an SLP as well for my kids who have speech and language impairments, breaking things down into smaller parts, repeating myself, using visuals, using manipulatives. There's a lot of things that we can do to differentiate for our kids.
Awesome.
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And I think we wanted to touch a little bit now on benefits of being bilingual. So go ahead, Celine.
Sure. So there's a lot of reasons that being bilingual is a benefit. And I also like to share this with my parents who feel like their children are confused. In the United States, most people are monolingual, but that is not the norm worldwide. Like across the world, other children learn multiple languages. In school, they start second language learning very early in life. So some of the benefits, like when I did a literature review of being bilingual, is that there's cognitive benefits of increased problem solving, greater mental flexibility because you're able to transfer between two languages. So you see this like with the little ones when they know that abuela speaks Spanish and they need to talk with abuela in Spanish, but that their friend in school speaks English. Like that ability to kind of navigate back and forth between languages is very, it's a great skill. Also, they're finding that later in life that there's increased cognitive benefits, like with reduced memory impairments. Like Alzheimer's is reduced in people who are bilingual, that they're able to kind of access like their language, like aphasia, persons with aphasia. So there's a lot of benefits like throughout the lifespan of being bilingual. Not to mention the fact that you can communicate with more people. I mean, there's so many benefits to it.
Awesome. And I think it's so important to make your students aware, like coming from a teacher's standpoint of view, SERPA, Word Generation, which was created by Stanford University out on the West Coast, they have articles and debates that your students can do at their grade level about being bilingual and bringing all of this up to your students so that they feel proud and excited about the idea of being bilingual. So let's talk about myth number 2. A child who switches back and forth between languages will never, ever master either language and doesn't have great vocabulary. I thought, like, I really was one of these believers of this myth. I know you're going to clarify this. My mother always told me, vas a hablar un idioma al otro, decide. Like, you're going to pick which one or the other. Don't be talking to me in English and then Spanish, English and Spanish. You're not mastering either one. How much of this is true? So let's talk a little bit about translanguaging. What is it? And should parents and educators be concerned?
Okay, so this is definitely a myth. Code mixing is part of natural language acquisition. So if a child understands that they need to communicate with a certain individual in a certain language, they're trying to communicate, but they might not have like a certain vocabulary word that they're looking for in their L2. So you're going to hear code mixing. I mean, it's a phenomenon that happens. So the example I gave was a child might not have the word dog in English and they say, I see the perro big, so an example of something I would do there is I would model it back correctly, using a complete sentence in either language. And the reason that I typically suggest that as an SLP is because the language structure between languages or the syntax is different. So in order for them to kind of naturally acquire the correct syntax in each language, I recommend, providing a whole utterance in one language if possible. Or if you don't speak their other language, just model it back correctly and they'll begin to acquire the language, holistically like that.
That's excellent. But in the meantime, like in the classroom, it's most definitely okay, for example, for me to have my student research something in the language that they prefer and then proceed and encourage them to then proceed with translating it in English, but offer them that support and supplement with both languages, correct?
Yes, definitely. So you want to try and give input, and if you're able to, and through whatever means will help that child with their comprehension and expression. We want to use like all the tools in our toolbox, basically. So if you're able to communicate with that child in their L1 or provide them visual supports or give them a good model back, then that's what you want to be doing because we're here to grow their language.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to show a video about translanguaging so we can have a better idea how that works. So I'm going to let everyone tune in. Here we go.
The first time I heard a description of translanguaging, I was like, what? No way. What is this crazy idea about mixing languages and letting the students use whatever they want in the classroom? I'm a university-trained language teacher, and my whole methodological background was founded on the principle of target language in the classroom. After extensive research and study, I realized that it isn't as crazy as it sounds. The crux of pedagogical translanguaging is accepting that languages can work together in the classroom rather than in competition, and teachers can plan strategically for students to use two languages for learning. There are many strategies teachers can use to integrate translanguaging into their classrooms. The first basic structure I train teachers to use is to vary the language of input, processing, and output in a learning cycle. An example. Imagine you are teaching a history class with learners from diverse language backgrounds. You allow the students to gather information on the topic in their own languages, and then bring them together for a group discussion in English about what they have learned. Then they work separately to write a story in their own language, and come together in groups again to rework the stories into English. In this way, they are building their learning through one language and transferring it to the other, a powerful cognitive strategy. And in the process, they are improving their academic skills in both languages. Translanguaging is an indispensable strategy for bilingual classrooms. It can also be used very successfully in multilingual classrooms. Translanguaging pedagogy is different with younger and older learners, but is beneficial for all ages. Implementing a translanguaging approach requires an openness to innovative practice, as well as professional development and coaching. But to see it in action is to clearly understand the significant benefits for learners in terms of their own language development, their English development, their content learning, and their social development. Easy as it sounds.
Oops. So, I apologize. Let me get back to that one for you guys. I am going to go ahead and offer for us to go into a breakout. I would love for us to go into a breakout and to have one self-appointed leader. When you're in this breakout, I would love for you all to please share your 3, 2, 1 notes, something that, facts that we've learned, things that we found interesting, and a question that we might have that you want clarification. I also would love for us to go ahead, when we do our breakouts, I do want to remind you that we have a Padlet. So if any case you want to refer to the Padlet, some things that we've already talked about, I sent everyone this email with the link to the Padlet. Some things that we've already talked about are the videos that we mentioned about translanguaging. Okay. And
we have another one down there from Celeste Roseberry McKibben. She has a lot of information on bilingual students with speech and language impairments. Like, she literally wrote the book on it. So she's a great resource and has a lot of videos on YouTube with great examples of coaching.
Yes. And we also have, I know that we talked about bilingual versus monolingual. So here are some articles if you want to refer to that while you're having your discussions in the Padlet. That would be awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and have everyone break out. I think we're just going to do about like 5 minutes for a breakout. I think that's sufficient time. So let's go ahead and do that. Bear with me. There we go. We might not have even amount of people, but I think 5 is fair. 3 to 4 participants per room should be fair. All right, everyone, I'll give you a 1 minute warning when we're gonna come back. So we'll see you. Let me see, I think someone's wanting to come in. Let me get this person in before we go into breakout rooms so he can be in. Hi, Juan, welcome. We're about to go into breakout rooms and share some things that we've learned together. So here we go, I'm gonna break you all out. Is it working? Hi. I believe I'm in the room with Christina, Esperanza, Natalie, Rosario. Hi. Hi, everyone. You're welcome to join and open up your camera. Hello.
I thought it was interesting that being bilingual has cognitive benefits because I feel like even though I am bilingual, I wasn't really aware of like the benefits of it, which is interesting.
It feels good, right?
Yeah, it's kind of empowering.
It really is. And I think that's one of the main reasons for me personally that I'm making sure my students are aware of that because they do really feel empowered. Judy, you say your name's Judy?
Yes.
JD. You said you want to be a teacher, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. Do you know what grade level?
Like kinder first.
Can I
So,
recommend something to you after many years of experience now? Go for your becoming a teacher, but go for your bilingual certification.
yeah, that's
Because
a goal.
one, you'll get a job ASAP,
Okay.
like this, like this.
Yeah.
The population is growing so fast, and if you're bilingual, like it's key, and it'll be so helpful for so many kids. So yeah, most definitely.
Thank you for the tip.
You're welcome. So are all you girls going to school? No?
No, just me and Lindsay.
No doubt? You
So I'm a speech language pathologist. Bilingual speech language pathologist. I worked for early intervention. I'm now working for preschool. I do get a lot of questions from parents, especially because a lot of the children that I've worked with, especially from the 2 to 3 in early intervention, they're all diagnosed with autism. So a lot of parents are really concerned about exposing their child to another language. Oh, he's gonna get confused. So it's really good to remind parents, remind myself and also remind the parents, no, this is what you need to, this is what you need to do. One of the things though that the parents, oh, what if he's saying something to me? Because before, what used to be done, you used to, if you were doing a session, you would translate simultaneously, and that's no longer recommended. So that's one of my questions for this, for this call, because usually like what she said about the syntax of different languages, my first language is Spanish. I came here I came to the US when I was 14 years old, so I learned English as an adult, as a teenager. So yeah, so the syntax is different. So when you have a child that is saying words or sentences in one language, and you really want to focus on the other language, like how do you balance that? Especially for a lot of families, they're like, oh, should I be talking to him in English and then my husband in Spanish? And I know there are different ways in which you could do that within a family.
I know that from based on research I've read, and I know, and you might want to, in regards to specifics about speech and children on the spectrum, you should ask Celine, but most definitely having this child it's ideal for one parent to speak one and another parent to speak the other. So that way they can distinguish between, it's like what she gave the example about the abuela. Like abuela only is going to talk to us in Spanish, and our parents are going to talk to us in English. So we need to how to distinguish and define the two languages. But most definitely keep reiterating that to parents. And we, on that Padlet, we gave so much research, and there's a podcast you can follow and there's videos you can watch. Yeah, the Padlet, it's awesome because we gave you articles that you can refer back to make sure you know, to show the parents the research about children with who are under the spectrum can most definitely both learn both languages.
How do you access that information?
Oh, I sent, maybe did you register late? Because I sent it on an email.
I registered today.
Okay, so I'll make sure that I get your email. You can put in well, I'll get it privately from you. I'm going to break the breakout rooms back into everybody, and we'll ask that question, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So it looks like, let's hope everybody comes back. Everyone should be coming back. It's going to close soon, yeah.
There I am. Oh, we're back.
Yay. So
Hi, Vanessa. Huh? Hi, Melissa. How are you?
It's great to see everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We have some great questions. Like, I'm really excited for Celine to maybe answer some of them. I know everything's slowly coming in. Is Celine here?
I'm here.
Yay.
Hi.
Okay, great. Celine, we had a really good question in my breakout. I hope everyone gained some information.
I hope I can answer it.
Mabel Estevez had a really good question, and I just think it's so worth answering. So, Mabel,
Sure.
go ahead. Is she here?
Where is she?
Here she is. Let me unmute her.
Hi.
There she is.
So one of the things that I was saying is that I work with early intervention, and I used to work, now I'm working with preschoolers, but the majority of the kids that I worked with were diagnosed with autism. So a lot of parents were concerned about exposing their child to a different language because they were going to get confused, and they would also have like pediatricians recommending not to speak to their kid and in both languages. And then I would have like the parents saying to me, oh, but should I be talking to my child in English, and then my husband and to him in Spanish? And then what if he says something to me in one language? Do I translate? And I know, like, I've read before, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm really not knowledgeable about this, is that usually what we used to do before as speech therapists is that we would simultaneously translate, oh yeah, esa es la bola, that's a ball, but that's not recommended anymore. So I'm just like, how would you balance that in a session when you're working with a bilingual child?
Well, I also work in early intervention, so I'm really glad that you asked that, because our emerging language learners are emerging, meaning that they don't really have a lot of language. I know emerging means something different in ENL. So I love working with the little ones because if you think about it, they're kind of like a blank slate. There's a lot of room for growth there. So it kind of disheartens me to hear that about the pediatricians. I think that kind of comes from a lack of information more than actual fact or research or any evidence. So a lot of times, when the little ones are diagnosed with autism, the parents are very concerned and panicked about, is my child going to be able to speak? What should I do? So what I always recommend to the parents is that they speak to their child in the language that they're most comfortable in. So we have to create an environment that is language rich with a lot of like robust vocabulary and proper grammatical structures, and to be the best models that we can for those kids. So I always tell parents to speak to their child in the language that they're the most comfortable. And to me, I don't care what language that is, as long as the child is getting that input.
And is that it's consistent, right? If I'm not correct, like if my son is autistic, and I have my husband and I, would it be ideal for me, if I feel most comfortable in Spanish, I speak to him only in Spanish, if I want him to grow up to be bilingual, even though he's autistic, and my husband to speak to him only in English? Would that be an ideal situation for a child?
Well, that's a model a lot of families choose. That was actually a question that emerged in my breakout room as well, about one parent speaking one language and one parent speaking the other. So if both parents are bilingual, that is a model that a lot of families choose to use. Yes. Now, I just want to reiterate that this is a personal choice. Like, how you use language in your home is, a choice that you will make on your own, and whatever you feel comfortable with. Like, your child better than anyone. But I do like that model. For example, in my house, both my parents are bilingual, but they don't speak the same second language. So the common language in our house was English. And I acquired Spanish, like through osmosis somehow. But I didn't acquire Greek. And the reasons for that is because I was more exposed to Spanish. I was around Spanish relatives. I listened to Juan Luis Guerra. I watched novelas with my mom. It was everywhere. And Greek, I would hear, 2 or 3 times a month. Right. And, it's a much more difficult language to learn, in my opinion. So I didn't acquire that.
I see.
So I think that providing a language-rich environment is the goal. Whatever means that a parent chooses to get there, while being the best model that they can, like talking to your child all the time about the things that you're observing, about the things that you're doing, conversing with them. Right. Not like a back and forth, a conversation that's really the goal.
And I think on that Padlet, I just want to reiterate that on that Padlet, we did give research about these kinds of questions. So if everybody wants to go back to make sure that they refer back to when they're at work and they want to show a parent, that Padlet, yes, articles are there, and I emailed that to everyone. So let's go on to myth number 3. Learning interventions should be only done in the student's instructional language. Is that true or false? And can you explain?
This is very false. So, we do live in New York. We have, Lizette and I live in New York. I know a lot of you other participants might be somewhere else, but we do have a lot of resources available to us here. While they're not as many as we might need, we do have a lot of bilingual educators, bilingual clinicians. So this is a difficult question. It really comes down to knowing that every child is different. You can't have a rule for working with a bilingual child. You need to look at the whole child, look at their learning profile, look at their language profile. So something I always tell teachers is that and other clinicians, or like new clinicians, that the parent interview is really the most important tool that you have when learning about a child's language and learning profile. So if you have like a great set of questions about language and learning environments in the home, like what language does mom speak? What does dad speak? So on the Padlet, there's a home language questionnaire, the ELL deck, that we shared with you, that has a lot of good questions. And that, if you feel like a child has a learning or language deficit, that you make sure that you're comparing that child to peers from similar language and learning environments. That you're not comparing them to monolingual peers who had a completely different experience. That is something that we don't want to do. That's how we over-identify children.
So tell me, which one was it, the one that you mentioned?
The Alberta Language Development Questionnaire. So it's all the way at the bottom.
Is it this one? Yes,
Yeah.
that was the language development questionnaire.
So there's a lot of questions on there that could kind of point you in the right direction of the kind of things that we need to know from the parents. So the bilingual SLP or the bilingual school psychologist or the team, you know, the ENL teacher, the classroom teacher, we can start to develop a profile of the child and their language dominance. So if we determine that a child is Spanish dominant and we're providing their interventions in English with no ENL support, what are we really doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we giving them a true intervention, or are we just teaching them English, maybe? So we have to make sure that the interventions are appropriate, because if they're not, then we're not going to get the results that we want.
Of course.
So going back to all the strategies, so what if you don't have a bilingual provider who speaks the child's home language? Now, this might happen, and this definitely happens a lot. So what I would recommend to you is to talk to a bilingual SLP or, you know, an ENL teacher and talk about what kind of supports you can provide to that child when you're giving them a reading intervention. So can we use more visuals? Can we break things into smaller pieces? Can we repeat the directions or write the directions on the board for the child to refer to? Often it's really just kind of like the smallest changes that make the biggest impact when it comes to someone learning.
They really do. They really do. So myth number 4 is, are there any true assessments that are not biased to the bilingual child when checking for deficits? Because some people think that there are, and some people think there are not any true assessments. So what is it?
Well, I have a lot of opinions on this because I do a lot of evaluations, but there is no standardized test that is appropriate for a bilingual child, because the population that the test is normed on is pretty much almost guaranteed to not be the same population as the child we're evaluating. So that's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. As I mentioned before, we have to make sure that we're looking at the child compared to peers with similar cultural and linguistic backgrounds. So if we're evaluating, we say, oh, well, I'm giving the test of the Spanish, you know, standard assessment, but that test was normed on Puerto Rican bilingual Spanish speakers, not monolingual Spanish speakers from El Salvador. It's not the same thing. So, you know, as teachers
of that,
it's, as teachers and clinicians, I mean, we definitely have our work cut out for us. So,
talk a little bit about the wordless picture books. I thought that was so fascinating when you were explaining it to me.
Sure. So, on the Padlet, under the Leaders Project tab, if you want to like go back over there, there's a lot of information under the leadersproject.org. That's Dr. Kate Crowley from Columbia. Also, Tatiana Elisa from Smart Speech Therapy. Oh, there you go, wordless picture books. So you can click on that, and it really reveals so much about a child's thinking when you get a narrative assessment, because you can see their sequencing, their vocabulary, their verb tense, their ability to make connections, to answer non-concrete questions. So for school-age children, I feel like this is definitely the gold standard. There's a couple suggestions for books here on the Padlet that you can use. There's a large connection between language and literacy, as we all know. From a therapeutic perspective, I really like to work through literacy, so this is something that I like to use a lot. Dr. Crowley on the SLAM cards has a variety of different sequences of pictures that you can use, so you can cut them out and then kind of like see where the child is at. All my bilingual SLPs that are here know about this already, but so these are all different assessment materials. Like, for example, the dog comes home one. It's 7 pictures. The child puts them in order, talks about the events in the story. We look at temporal themes, first, next, last, then, making inferences. All those juicy literacy topics that we really want to know about that will help a child be like successful in school. So this is a non-biased way to evaluate a child, because as long, okay, caveat, 1 second. So you have to choose the appropriate pictures for the child. For example, on the slam cards, there's one that the child is on the subway. Now that might be appropriate for a child who lives in New York City, but for a child who lives in Wisconsin, who's never been on the subway, that is not appropriate.
Right.
Because maybe they've never even seen a train before. So know your child that you're working with. Decide.
I have to add to this. Like, Celine, I talked about this when we talked about building your communication with parents. I did a whole webinar on this. It's so important to really get to know your families, really get to know your students. This is the time to do it. We shouldn't be in a rush right now to get crazy into content. It's so important to know our students. And we can still get into content and still get to know our students at the same time. Like, I just assigned to my students a week-long project. They have a week to do it, where they create a Flipgrid video with their parents along their side, and they're asked to have a communication, two-way communication with one another, asking questions that in regards to Hispanic heritage. And just by watching them on video, how they interact, how they communicate, what they talked about, what their questions were about, gave me so much insight about these families. And then from there, I can proceed with determining some of the things, or help if I see later that they need some RTI or that they might need to be evaluated. I can pass this information along, or even show the video to the speech pathologist. So these are just some ideas to share with you of what really might be helpful to the child in the long run when you are doing those assessments.
So having that open line of communication when possible is huge. And often we find, like, we're with the kids a few hours a day, but they're home with their parents. Like, especially those of you who, are a fee for service, SLP, you see the kid for 1 hour a week, but where are they all those other hours? It's really important. Like, that's one thing I love about the early intervention model, is the parent coaching aspect of it. So when you have the parents on board, of course, again, not always possible. I've worked in a school, guys, I know it's not always possible. But when you do have them on board, it's very, very helpful to understand where that child is coming from.
Yes, I agree. So important. I wanted to get a little bit into, we're going to dig deeper next webinar that we present, but what are some special considerations for English language learners? Some things that we have to take with us and take away.
Well, number one is that a difference is not a disorder. Okay. And I think we've gained a lot of progress in this mentality in the last 20 years. But knowing that just because a child speaks a different language and might not have been exposed to certain things doesn't mean that they have a disorder. And I'll give you an example of that. Okay. So a well-known assessment that I use requires that a child does something with blocks. Now, if that child has never seen blocks before because they don't have access to them, it is not fair to mark that question wrong because they're not exposed to it. So kind of like thinking about something so concrete, like a set of blocks, that's not a disorder. That's just content that the child doesn't know yet.
Right.
So.
Right. Very important. We could dig deep. And that's why I know that we want to present more in regards to learning disabilities and children who are bilingual. I most definitely throughout my career where I work, we have a lot of English language learners. It's hard to distinguish because we have long-term LEPs, the ones that are already still in 6th grade, they were even born here. And the question at that point is it because they have a learning disability, or is it because they are still in that mode where they're learning both languages? And so most recently, one thing that you mentioned to me to be cognizant of and be aware of is that you mentioned it takes up to how many years still to really fully acquire a language?
So, the earlier research suggested that CALP, cognitive academic language proficiency, was 5 to 7 years. And I still have to find who that article is at.
Yeah.
But new research is showing that it might actually be longer than that. And it could be between 9 and 12 years, depending on the language environment. So basically, for a child to acquire academic language proficiency in their L2 could take their entire school career.
Honestly, that was a game changer.
It's intense.
That was a
Definitely.
game changer for me as an educator, because when I heard that, I was like, this makes sense now.
It does.
Not to say, as an educator, I am very, very careful and observant of my students. I pay attention to their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, to their speech. I pay attention to all of that, the amount of time it might take them to process information. And if I gave them the visuals or if I didn't give them the visuals, because I also do want to make sure that they have their needs met if they are special needs, even though they are bilingual, and to get the right services if they are in a bilingual program. So, but at the same time, after you shared that research with me, it was a game changer for me, because sometimes I have to be reminded, and I think parents need to be reminded that sometimes we just need time. And when you said that to me, I thought back myself being bilingual. I completely forgot my first language when I was around 15, because I was always just hearing English.
Yes.
I was forgetting my first language, Spanish. And then I just went back and forth with both. I never really felt proficient in either until I became an adult. And I went and I had more experience in life and whatnot. So when you shared that information to me, that was a really big game changer.
Absolutely. And those strategies that you're talking about that you give your kids, like, did I give them the visuals? Did I do this? Did I do that? Those anecdotal things, that's like the key that unlocks the door. Because if you find the visuals work for this kid, then that is the most valuable information that you can share with parents and future teachers. You'd be like, well, he needs to have visuals of the directions first, and then he's good.
Right. Right. Most definitely. Visual schedules are good for everyone. People learn differently, and we have to keep that in mind as well. I do want to go over, do a little scavenger hunt with everyone and do a book giveaway before we let everyone go. So, oh my gosh, because I don't know what happened, you guys. I'm sorry I keep going back and forth. I don't know what happened with my screen. I had it all up and don't tell me it went away. So I had everyone's names ready because I do want to do a book giveaway. I hope it's this one. I believe it is. Here it is. I do have everyone here. So I hope that we can go ahead and we're going to do a book giveaway. And I also want to do a scavenger hunt for fun with the Padlet. So here we go. We have a book to give away by Ofelia Garcia. And our winner is JD! Yay! JD, you were in my small group, so that's awesome. I will be getting in contact with you so we can mail that out to you. And thank you for participating on that. And so I'm glad that I found that for you all. I would like to share an idea that why don't we go ahead. I did send everyone the link to the Padlet, but I would love for us to do a scavenger hunt, and I'll show the Padlet to you all now. Go ahead and get your phones. And, Ayana says she also wants to do a book giveaway.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Yes. That's exciting. Let's do it, Ayana. Wait, let me go back. Second book giveaway. Ayana, you're awesome. Okay, hold on. Sorry, my computer's like, what's happening here? Oh no. Okay, not good.
Oh, Ayana, let me unmute her.
Here we go. My wheel of fortune.
Ayana, let me.
Second winner.
I have to try and unmute Ayana.
Giselle. I don't think she's here. hold on. I think this is exciting for Giselle, but she's not here. So I'm going to actually, and I personally know her, so I'm going to actually give it to someone else. Giselle, make it up to her.
Hey.
Oh, is she here?
But that's okay. That's okay. You can give it away.
I got Ayana unmuted.
Without the book, she'll be okay. Ayana, hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
I just found out about this webinar, I think yesterday.
Yes, you messaged me. Yes, thank you for being here.
Sure, we're like connected on LinkedIn. And
yes,
so I don't want to take up time, but my book just came out this month, and Justice for English Learners. It's all about the civil rights of English learners and helping school leaders and educators not to violate student civil rights. So I wanted to also do a book giveaway.
That's
I love
great.
this winner. So who's the winner? Because I want to make sure they get a copy.
We're gonna do it again. Giselle doesn't count. She's here for support today.
Okay.
Giselle's in a whole other ball. Look, she's a winner again. Look at her.
No, she is meant to have this book.
No, listen. In all honesty, everyone, Giselle's my sister, and she's in the business world. She's here for moral support tonight.
Oh,
okay. Let's pick a winner that really is in the field of education that can really use this book. My sister grew up as a bilingual, but she's here for moral support tonight.
All right, one more try.
I'll go play the lotto tonight.
Third time's the charm.
Anna Maria. Oh wait, Julia, is she here?
Julia,
are you here? Julia.
Oh my goodness, I cannot give away a free book.
Oh my gosh, we want to give it away because I want that book.
I definitely want to order one.
How about you want? I think I can. I'm happy to send one to you. You're the host. I just wanted to share.
I want to be excited about.
Monique. Okay. Monique is a bilingual speech pathologist in California.
Yay!
Yay!
Okay.
All right. So
one copy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and I'm excited about that book. Most definitely, got to get a copy.
All right.
Okay,
thanks.
so Monique's here. Yay! We're happy. Thank you, Miss Cooper. All right.
Thank you very much.
This is great. Okay, so let me go back. I do want to go back to us scanning. If you guys can all get your phones out, if you have your phones available, I want us to have our phones out. Click on the palette scavenger hunt with our phones, put it up to the screen, go to photo, put up to the screen, and it's just a 3-question scavenger hunt. Did we get it? I'm sorry, everyone. Did we get it in? Can people give me thumbs up if you got it in, just so I know when to get out of here so I can send you to a Padlet.
Everyone good?
I think we're okay. Okay.
Thumbs up. It's hard when you can't see everyone at once.
Okay. So let me get out of here. And I'm going to go to our Padlet. So everyone can go ahead. You either have the link that you already have yourself that I sent you via email, or you can just look on here. We have 3 questions that were asked. We can take the time to look.
So Lizette was referring to those articles that you could share with parents. So I kind of compiled a few different journal articles that look at the bilingual population. The first one is about the bilingual advantage that goes in really deep about the cognitive benefits of being bilingual, the benefits later in life. There's a couple articles about bilingual children with hearing loss and special populations that will, inform you about bilingual language acquisition and children who have disabilities. So those are there under the articles. A wonderful resource is Bilinguistics, which is all the way on the left. There's a lot of information on there. One thing I would really, really encourage you to do is if you have a child who has a low incidence language or speaks Spanish and you're not familiar with Spanish, just kind of get to know a little bit about the language and the structure of the language, because you might feel like they're misarticulating things or leaving the ends off words, and that might be consistent with their L1. So that's something that I encourage you to investigate with the help of an SLP if you're not an SLP, or with the help of an ENL teacher, or whatever team you have available to you, to really look at their L1 before you feel like there are any concerns.
Definitely. And I want to point out that we have a podcast here. We have who to follow, social media. That's one of your questions on your Survey Monkey that you're supposed to do on your phone. Like, who can you follow? Most definitely follow Celine. You can follow me, Educating with Love. We have so many great people, Bilingual Speechy. Some videos that you can watch, some items that you should maybe consider purchasing on Amazon or on Teachers Pay Teachers, from things that teachers have created. One of my favorites is Laleo. You can find her on Laleo Bilingual Therapy. She's on Teachers Pay Teachers. She's on social media. So those are some really, really amazing resources for you to refer back to. And so I just really want to wrap it up. I just want to thank everyone for being with us here today. This has been a great way for us to come together in community and support one another. And we are going to be doing presentations. Educating with Love does presentations every month. So make sure to check it out. You can follow me on on Instagram, it's educating_with_love. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and you can also follow Celine. Celine, go right ahead.
So I don't have an Instagram yet.
I'm trying to get her on.
Everyone's trying to bring me to the dark side. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I also have a Twitter. So if you want to reach me, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. There's my email address. I'm very easily findable.
And I also want to add that I put this QR code. If everyone wants to take their phone one more time, put your camera to the QR code. Please fill out the survey, what you thought about tonight's webinar. That feedback is everything, because if you tell us what you need to learn or what you want to go deeper in with Celine and I, we can bring that to you and provide more resources to you, and tell us what maybe we didn't do enough of. That'd be awesome. So please take the time to go ahead and give us that feedback. We'd so appreciate it. And we're so appreciative for all of you being here tonight. We know that many of us are very, very, very tired. It's been crazy. So anyhow, thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. If you have any questions, contact either one of us directly. So
thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I
think we just lost Monique. I hope she got her book.
Oh.
I know how to find her, though. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Stop recording.